At 3:17 a.m., Sarah's phone buzzed with a motion alert from her doorbell camera. Half asleep, she grabbed her phone and opened the app. She expected to see a raccoon, maybe a stray cat. Instead, there was a man standing on her porch. He wasn't knocking. He wasn't moving. He was just staring directly into the camera. Sarah checked the timestamp. The man had already been standing there for over 2 hours. Her stomach dropped. She locked her bedroom door and kept watching the live feed. 10 minutes passed. Nothing changed. The man remained perfectly still. Not a single movement. Not even a blink. Trying to convince herself it was just a prank, Sarah turned off her phone and went back to bed. 30 minutes later, another alert woke her up. Motion detected. Her hands trembled as she opened the app again. The man was now much closer. So close that only his face was visible. His eyes looked straight into the lens. Then, slowly, a smile spread across his face. It wasn't a normal smile. It stretched unnaturally wide. Sarah immediately called 911. The dispatcher told her officers were already on the way. While waiting, she continued watching the camera. Suddenly, the man leaned toward the microphone. For a few seconds, he said nothing. Then he whispered, "I know you're watching me." The feed instantly went black. Sarah nearly dropped her phone. Less than 5 minutes later, police arrived and searched the entire property. The porch was empty. The yard was empty. No footprints, no fingerprints. Nothing. It was as if the man had never been there. But the recording remained saved on Sarah's account. Police reviewed it multiple times. They never identified the man. And according to Sarah, she still receives random motion alerts some nights. When she checks the footage, nobody is there. But every once in a while, for a single frame, a smiling face appears on the screen. At 2:58 a.m., Jake was awakened by the sound of his phone vibrating on the nightstand. Motion detected at front door. He rubbed his eyes and opened the doorbell camera app. A woman was standing on his porch. She wore a long gray coat. Her dark hair covered most of her face. At first, Jake thought she needed help. But something felt wrong. She wasn't knocking. She wasn't looking around. She wasn't even moving. She just stood there, perfectly still. Jake checked the live feed for almost a minute. Nothing changed. Then suddenly, the woman slowly lifted her head. Her face came into view. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Her eyes were completely black. Not dark, not shadowed, just black. He immediately locked every door in the house and called the police. The dispatcher told him officers were on the way. While waiting, Jake continued watching the camera. The woman remained on the porch, motionless. 5 minutes passed. 10 minutes passed. Then something happened. The woman smiled, a slow, unnatural smile, and then she turned around and walked away. Relieved, Jake thought it was over. But when police arrived and reviewed the footage, they noticed something strange. The woman never actually walked away. Frame by frame, she simply disappeared. One frame she was there, the next frame she wasn't. No walking, no turning a corner, nothing. It was as if she had vanished. The officers searched the area anyway. They found nobody. For the next few weeks, life returned to normal, until exactly 1 month later. 2:58 a.m., another motion alert. Jake's heart sank. He opened the app. The same woman was back, standing in the exact same spot, wearing the exact same clothes, not moving, This time, Jake called the police immediately. But before officers arrived, the woman did something she hadn't done before. She raised one hand, slowly, and pointed toward the side of Jake's house. Confused, Jake switched to the camera covering his backyard. At first he saw nothing. Then a shadow moved between the trees. Someone was back there, watching the house. Jake's stomach dropped. He checked the front camera again. The woman was still pointing, as if she was trying to warn him. Police arrived minutes later and searched the backyard. Hidden behind a line of bushes, they found a man carrying a backpack filled with tools. According to police, he had likely been planning to break into the house. The man was arrested. Jake assumed the nightmare was finally over. But later that night, curiosity got the better of him. He reviewed the footage again. Something about the woman bothered him. He paused the video, zoomed in, and froze. The woman wasn't looking at the backyard. She wasn't looking at the house. She wasn't looking at the camera. She was staring directly through Jake's living room window, at a spot behind where he had been sitting. Slowly, Jake rewound the recording, frame by frame. And in one single frame, reflected in the glass beside her, was another face, pale, smiling. Standing directly behind Jake inside the house, he immediately turned around. Nobody was there. At least that's what he thought. The next morning, Jake checked every camera recording from the previous night. And that's when he found something that made him move out less than a week later. At 3:14 a.m., while he had been asleep upstairs, one of the indoor cameras recorded movement in the hallway. The footage showed a tall shadow emerging from the darkness, walking slowly through the house, room by room, for nearly 20 minutes. The figure never showed a face, never looked at the camera, never made a sound. Then it stopped outside Jake's bedroom door and remained there for over an hour, just standing, watching. At 4:37 a.m., the figure turned and walked away, disappearing into the darkness at the end of the hall. Police investigated again. No signs of forced entry, no fingerprints, no evidence, nothing. The footage was real, but nobody could explain it. Jake sold the house 6 months later. The new owners never heard about the recordings. Everything seemed normal, until their first month in the home. On a cold October night, at exactly 2:58 a.m., their doorbell camera detected motion. A woman in a gray coat was standing on the porch, waiting. And this time, she wasn't alone. If you saw a stranger standing outside your house every night at exactly the same time, would you call the police? What if the police saw him too? But when they arrived, he was already gone. And what if, months later, you discovered that the stranger wasn't watching your house? He was waiting for someone to come out. In 2018, a man named Daniel moved into a rental home on the outskirts of Asheville, North Carolina. The house was old, but beautiful. It sat at the end of a quiet road surrounded by trees. The nearest neighbor lived almost half a mile away. Daniel loved the privacy. For the first few weeks, everything seemed normal. Then one night, around 2:41 a.m., his phone buzzed. Motion detected. He had recently installed a doorbell camera after a package theft. Thinking it was an animal, he opened the app. A man stood at the edge of the driveway. The camera's night vision made it difficult to see details. But one thing was clear. The man was standing completely still. Daniel watched for several minutes. The stranger never moved. Eventually, he lost interest and went back to sleep. The next morning, there was no sign of anyone, no footprints, nothing. The incident felt strange but not terrifying, until it happened again. The following night, 2:41 a.m. motion detected. The same man stood in the exact same location, facing the house. Not moving, not walking, just watching. Daniel felt uneasy. He saved the footage. The third night, the stranger returned again. Same time, same place. This continued for nearly 2 weeks, every night at 2:41 a.m. Every night the stranger appeared. Sometimes he stayed for a few minutes, sometimes for over an hour. But he never approached the house, never knocked, never spoke, just watched. Daniel eventually called the local police. An officer reviewed the footage. The recordings clearly showed someone standing near the driveway, but there wasn't enough evidence for any criminal charge. The officer suggested calling immediately if the person returned. 2 nights later, Daniel did exactly that. At 2:41 a.m., the motion alert arrived. The stranger was back. Police responded within minutes. Daniel watched from his bedroom window. A patrol car slowly approached the property. Its headlights swept across the driveway. The stranger should have been visible, but there was nobody there. The officer searched the area. Nothing. The camera footage showed the man standing there moments earlier. Yet when police arrived, he had somehow vanished. The officer assumed the person had fled into the woods. Daniel tried to accept that explanation. But deep down, something felt wrong, because the stranger never appeared to walk away. In every recording, he simply existed, standing there. Then eventually the motion alert would end, and the figure would be gone. Weeks passed, then months. The appearances continued, sometimes every night, sometimes only once a week, but always at exactly 2:41 a.m. Daniel became obsessed. He reviewed every recording frame by frame, looking for clues. One night he noticed something disturbing. The stranger wasn't always looking at the house. Sometimes his head was angled slightly upward, toward the second-floor bedroom window. Daniel's bedroom window. That realization made his skin crawl. The next day, he installed additional cameras around the property. One facing the backyard, one covering the side entrance, and one inside the hallway. For nearly a month, nothing unusual happened. Then came October 17th, a date Daniel would never forget. At exactly 2:41 a.m., every camera on the property activated simultaneously. His phone exploded with notifications. Motion detected. Motion detected. Motion detected. Daniel sat upright in bed, his heart pounding. He opened the front camera first. The stranger was standing closer than ever before. Not at the driveway, not near the road. He was standing directly beside the porch, only a few feet from the front door. For the first time, Daniel could see details. The man looked thin, extremely pale. His clothes appeared old and worn, and his face carried an expression Daniel would never forget. He was smiling, not a friendly smile, not even a threatening one. It looked like someone trying to imitate a smile without understanding what one was supposed to look like. Daniel switched to the backyard camera. Nothing. The side camera. Nothing. Then he opened the indoor hallway camera and nearly dropped his phone. At the far end of the hallway stood another figure, inside the house, watching the camera. Daniel froze. His bedroom door was locked. Every window was locked. No alarm had sounded. Yet something appeared to be standing inside his home. The figure remained motionless for several seconds. Then the video feed cut out. Daniel immediately called 911. While waiting for police, he grabbed a baseball bat and locked himself in the bathroom. Officers arrived within minutes. They searched the entire house, every room, every closet, every crawl space. Nothing. No intruder, no evidence of forced entry, no footprints, nothing. Yet the camera recording remained. Police couldn't explain it. Neither could Daniel. After that night, he stopped sleeping properly. Every sound startled him. Every shadow looked suspicious. Friends told him to move, but Daniel refused. He wanted answers. Then one evening, while reviewing months of recordings, he discovered something shocking. The stranger wasn't getting closer over time. He wasn't moving toward the house at all. He was moving toward something else. Daniel opened several videos side by side, comparing the stranger's position. A horrifying pattern emerged. The figure always stood in locations that formed a straight line, a path leading from the woods to the front door, as if he was slowly following an invisible trail, night after night, step by step, month by month, getting closer. Daniel checked the most recent recording. The stranger had nearly reached the porch. There were only a few locations left before the trail ended. 3 nights later, Daniel received another alert. 2:41 a.m. His hand shook as he opened the app. The stranger had reached the front door. He stood inches from the camera, smiling, staring directly into the lens. For almost 20 minutes he didn't move. Then something happened. The stranger slowly raised one hand and pointed. Not at the camera, not at the house. Past the camera, toward the inside of the home, toward Daniel. The feed ended. The next morning, Daniel packed his belongings. Within a week, he moved out permanently. Months later, the property was rented to another tenant. Daniel never told them about the recordings. He wanted to forget everything. Then one afternoon, nearly a year later, he received an unexpected phone call. It was the new tenant. The first thing they asked was, "Did you ever have problems with your doorbell camera?" Daniel's blood ran cold. The tenant explained that every night at exactly 2:41 a.m., motion alerts appeared. But whenever they checked the footage, nobody was there until the previous night. For the first time, the camera captured someone standing at the edge of the driveway. A pale man, motionless, watching the house and smiling, exactly where Daniel had first seen him years before.